Corporal Ryan Hale lay on the bloodied ground of the battlefield. His vision blurred as the acrid smoke of war filled his lungs. The chaos around him was deafening, blasts of plasma fire, the mechanical growl of alien war machines, and the agonized screams of soldiers. His armor was cracked, his weapon useless, and blood seeped from a gash on his side. He struggled to breathe, each gasp a reminder of the pain coursing through his body. Yet he refused to give in. The alien coalition stood nearby, their figures grotesque and imposing, their voices filled with scorn. Tall, scaled beings with glowing eyes and heavy, advanced weapons laughed among themselves as they observed the wounded human soldier. One stepped forward, its voice a mix of clicks and guttural tones, mocking Ryan in a language he barely understood, but whose meaning was clear enough. The commander of the coalition, a towering figure with a crystalline skull shimmering under the battlefield's pale light, spoke with disdain. Human resilience, he sneered, his universal translator converting the words into harsh clarity. It's nothing but myth. They break like any other species. Look at this one, already crawling toward death. Laughter erupted among the alien ranks. They jeered at Ryan, some pointing their weapons mockingly at him, pretending to fire. To them, he was no more than a dying animal, a pitiful remnant of humanity's supposed bravery. Ryan clenched his teeth, his fingers digging into the dirt. The humiliation stung almost as much as his wounds, but he kept his focus. They didn't understand what humans were capable of. They didn't know about the squad. Ryan pressed a bloodied hand to the communicator embedded in his wrist. The signal was faint, damaged, but it might still work. His squad would come for him. They had to. The aliens moved closer, their mocking voices growing louder. One of them, a brutish creature with thick, armored skin, prodded Ryan with the barrel of its weapon, forcing him to roll onto his back. "You humans are fragile," it said, its voice dripping with contempt. "Your kind should have stayed on your little planet, hiding under your atmosphere." Ryan's gaze met the creature's, his expression defiant despite the pain. "You shouldn't have come here," he muttered, his voice hoarse but steady. The alien tilted its head, amused. "And why is that?" Ryan didn't answer. He didn't need to. In the distance, a faint sound cut through the battlefield noise, a low, rhythmic thudding. The aliens didn't notice it at first, too absorbed in their ridicule. But Ryan did. His lips curled into the faintest hint of a smile. The crystalline skull commander raised a hand, silencing his troops. "What's that sound?" he demanded, his tone suddenly sharp. The coalition soldiers turned, their laughter fading as they strained to hear. It was footsteps, heavy, deliberate, and growing louder. They were coming. The commander's eyes narrowed as he scanned the horizon. "Prepare yourselves," he barked, his earlier arrogance replaced by a hint of unease. Ryan felt the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him, but he forced himself to stay conscious. He needed to see this. He needed to see them face what was coming. The aliens formed a defensive line, their weapons raised, their earlier confidence shaken by the unseen threat. The thudding footsteps grew closer, joined by faint voices and the occasional metallic clink. The air seemed to grow heavier, the tension palpable. Ryan's hand fell away from his communicator, his strength fading. His vision darkened at the edges, but he managed one last thought before unconsciousness claimed him. They don't know who they're dealing with. As the darkness overtook him, the sound of footsteps grew louder, more distinct. The squad was coming, and the alien coalition had no idea what awaited them. The first alien soldier to see them froze, its weapon trembling in its claws. What emerged from the smoke and chaos was not a typical human rescue team. It was something far more terrifying. 5 figures moved in perfect unison, their armor blackened and scarred, yet gleaming with faint red streaks that pulsed like veins. They carried weapons that looked custom-made for destruction, modified far beyond standard military gear. Their presence was a thunderclap, a force that demanded attention and respect. Leading the squad was Captain Marcus Cain, his voice calm and deliberate over their private comms. "Formation Theta. Make them regret it." His tone was void of anger, but that only made it more menacing. This wasn't revenge. This was precision. The aliens opened fire, plasma bolts ripping through the air toward the squad. But they were too slow. The humans moved with eerie coordination, each step calculated. Cain fired first, his weapon emitting a sharp, mechanical whine before unleashing a crimson bolt of energy that tore through the nearest alien, its armor disintegrating in an instant. To his right, Specialist Zara Cade spun into action, her dual plasma blades igniting with a searing blue glow. She moved like liquid fire, closing the distance between her and 3 aliens before they could react. A flurry of slashes, and they fell, their weapons clattering uselessly to the ground. On the left flank, Sergeant Elias Ward knelt with his sniper rifle, its barrel glowing faintly. One shot, and the crystalline skull commander dropped to its knees. A hole burned clean through its head. The squad didn't pause to celebrate. They didn't need to. Every kill was just another step in the mission. The aliens faltered, their earlier bravado crumbling. They regrouped, forming a tighter line and calling for reinforcements. But it was too late. The squad had already breached their defenses. Corporal Ryan Hale's unconscious body lay in the center of the battlefield, and it was Specialist Derek Voss who reached him first. Voss was the squad's medic, but he was no less deadly than the others. He hoisted Ryan onto his shoulder with one hand, his other gripping a compact shotgun that fired bursts of kinetic energy. Each blast sent alien soldiers flying, their bodies crumpling like paper. The alien reinforcements arrived, heavily armored units with advanced weaponry, but the squad adapted instantly. They split into 2 teams, flanking the enemy from both sides. Zara leaped onto a towering alien mech, slicing through its power core with surgical precision, while Cain coordinated heavy fire to dismantle their barricades. "Keep moving," Cain ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. "They don't get to walk away from this." Elias provided cover fire, his sniper rifle picking off targets with ruthless efficiency. Every shot was a kill, every movement deliberate. The aliens' attempts to counterattack were met with devastating force, their lines collapsing under the squad's relentless assault. One of the alien leaders, a massive figure encased in thick, glowing armor, charged forward, its weapon crackling with energy. Cain didn't flinch. He stepped into the alien's path, his squad falling into position behind him. The alien swung its weapon, but Cain sidestepped with almost mechanical precision, driving his blade into the gap between the alien's armor plates. It collapsed with a deafening thud. The remaining aliens began to retreat, their morale shattered. But the squad didn't let up. They pressed forward, relentless and unstoppable. Plasma fire lit up the battlefield, and the air was filled with the sounds of weapons discharging and aliens falling. By the time the dust settled, the coalition forces were either dead or fleeing, their once proud army reduced to chaos. The squad regrouped around Ryan's body, Voss already working to stabilize him. "He's alive," Voss reported, his voice steady despite the carnage around them. "But we need to move now." Cain nodded, his expression unreadable behind his visor. "Mission accomplished. Let's go." As they carried Ryan away from the battlefield, the message was clear. The coalition had underestimated humanity. They had mocked a single wounded soldier, but in doing so they had provoked the squad, a force that was more than human. They were precision. They were vengeance. They were unstoppable. The squad moved deeper into enemy territory, the battlefield eerily silent after the storm of violence they had unleashed. The coalition forces had retreated, but not far. Cain could feel it, the tension in the air, the way the terrain seemed unnaturally quiet. The aliens were regrouping, preparing for another strike. "Keep your eyes open," Cain instructed, his voice a low growl over the comms. The squad acknowledged in clipped, efficient replies. They were professionals, hardened by countless missions, and they knew better than to let their guard down. Zara scouted ahead, her movements almost ghost-like as she melted into the shadows. The dense forest provided plenty of cover, but it also worked against them, hiding potential threats. She scanned the area with her visor, which highlighted heat signatures. "Multiple contacts ahead," she reported. Looks like they're setting up an ambush. Cain smirked under his helmet. Let them try. The squad adjusted their formation, moving into a defensive stance as they approached the enemy's position. The coalition soldiers were clearly on edge, their movements frantic as they tried to set up their trap. They hadn't anticipated the squad's methodical advance, nor the overwhelming firepower they brought with them. Elias found a vantage point on higher ground, his sniper rifle humming softly as he calibrated it. Target acquired, he said calmly. A single shot rang out, and the alien commander overseeing the ambush dropped, its body crumpling into the underbrush. The rest of the squad sprang into action. Zara moved like a blur, her plasma blades carving through the coalition's front line. Derek covered her, his shotgun sending shockwaves through the ranks, scattering the alien soldiers like leaves in the wind. Cain moved through the chaos with the confidence of a veteran warrior, his rifle spitting precise bursts of energy. Every shot was a kill, and every kill brought them closer to their goal. He didn't need to shout orders. The squad operated as a single unit, each member knowing exactly where they needed to be. The coalition soldiers fought back desperately, but it was clear they were outmatched. Their tactics were sloppy, their formations crumbling under the squad's relentless assault. Even the heavier units, armed with advanced weaponry and reinforced armor, fell quickly. The squad had faced worse before, and they had always come out on top. Ryan, still unconscious but stable, was secured in a makeshift stretcher carried by Voss. Despite his role as the medic, Voss was no stranger to combat, and he fired his sidearm with deadly precision while protecting his fallen comrade. "We're clear for now," he reported, his voice steady. But Cain wasn't convinced. He could feel the tension building, the sense that the coalition wasn't done yet. "This isn't their final play," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "They're stalling." His suspicions were confirmed moments later when the ground beneath them began to shake. A low rumble grew louder, and the squad turned to see massive enemy war machines advancing through the trees. These were not the haphazardly armed soldiers they had just faced. These were tanks and mechs, their weapons glowing ominously as they charged. Cain didn't flinch. "Zara, Elias, take out the flanks. Voss, keep Ryan safe. Derek, you're with me." The squad moved quickly, splitting into smaller units to deal with the new threat. Zara darted toward the left flank, her agility making her a difficult target. She climbed onto one of the mechs, her plasma blades slicing through its joints with surgical precision. The machine sputtered and collapsed, its pilot barely escaping before Zara finished them off. On the right flank, Elias targeted the tanks, his sniper rifle piercing through their armor with pinpoint accuracy. Each shot caused a cascade of explosions, lighting up the forest in bursts of fire and smoke. Meanwhile, Cain and Derek charged the center. Cain's rifle tore through the enemy ranks, while Derek used his shotgun to devastating effect, clearing a path through the chaos. They worked together seamlessly, their movements almost choreographed as they dismantled the coalition's forces. The battle was brutal and chaotic, but the squad's discipline and experience gave them the edge. One by one, the enemy war machines fell, their hulking forms reduced to smoking wreckage. The coalition soldiers who survived the onslaught fled, their morale shattered. When the dust finally settled, the squad regrouped around Ryan. The battlefield was littered with debris and alien bodies, a testament to the squad's ferocity. Voss checked Ryan's vitals again, nodding in satisfaction. "He's stable. We just need to get him out of here." Cain surveyed the carnage, his expression unreadable behind his visor. They had won, but he knew this wasn't the end. The coalition would come back, stronger and more determined. But for now, they had sent a message. Humanity was not to be underestimated. "Let's move," Cain said, his voice firm. The squad fell into formation, their steps heavy but resolute. They were tired, bruised, and battered, but they were still standing. And as long as they stood, they would fight. The squad pushed forward, leaving the battlefield behind but not the tension. Cain knew this was no victory lap. The coalition wouldn't let their defeat go unanswered, not after what the squad had done. It was only a matter of time before they struck back harder, stronger. The dense forest began to thin, giving way to jagged cliffs and rocky terrain, the air sharper and colder. This new environment favored neither side, but it was a test of endurance, and endurance was something Cain's squad excelled at. Zara moved up to Cain's side, her voice steady yet tinged with curiosity. "What's the next step? We've bloodied them, but you know they'll double down." Cain's response was measured. "We find their command hub, cut off the head, and the rest will scatter. It's the only way they'll back down." The squad didn't question him. Over the years, Cain's instincts had proven uncannily accurate, his ability to see through the chaos of war and find the thread of victory unmatched. They pressed on, navigating the unforgiving terrain with methodical precision. Voss stayed near the rear, keeping Ryan stable. The rest of the squad remained on high alert, their eyes scanning every shadow, every crevice. As night fell, the squad reached the crest of a ridge overlooking a massive coalition outpost. The structure was a fortress of alien design, its defenses bristling with energy turrets and patrol units. The sight was imposing, even for soldiers as seasoned as Cain's team. But it wasn't just the defenses that caught their attention, it was the activity. Dozens of coalition dropships were unloading troops and equipment, the scale of their operation becoming painfully clear. "They're prepping for an invasion," Elias observed, his voice calm but grim. "This isn't just about us anymore." Cain's jaw tightened. He had suspected as much, but seeing it confirmed was another matter. The coalition wasn't just retaliating. They were preparing to escalate the conflict into something much larger. If they weren't stopped here, countless lives would be at risk. "They think they can crush us," Cain said, his tone cold and resolute. "We're going to show them they're wrong." The squad began to plan, each member contributing their expertise. Elias mapped out vantage points for sniper coverage. Zara identified weak points in the outpost's perimeter, areas where their defenses were stretched thinner. Derek calculated the optimal placement for explosives to create maximum disruption. Voss, despite his focus on Ryan, offered insights on how to exploit the coalition's reliance on specific energy sources. The plan was simple in its brutality. Strike fast, hit hard, and leave the coalition scrambling. They couldn't afford a prolonged engagement. The goal was to cripple the outpost's operations and buy time for humanity to regroup and prepare for the larger threat looming on the horizon. Under the cover of darkness, the squad moved into position. Elias took the high ground, his rifle trained on the enemy patrols. Zara and Derek worked their way to the perimeter, planting charges at critical junctures. Cain stayed at the center, coordinating the assault while providing covering fire. Every movement was precise, every action calculated. The first explosion rocked the outpost, a thunderous blast that lit up the night sky. Chaos erupted as coalition soldiers scrambled to respond, their formations breaking under the sudden assault. Zara and Derek used the confusion to their advantage, slipping deeper into the base to sabotage key systems. Elias picked off high-ranking officers and heavy units, his shots carving through the chaos with surgical precision. Cain led the main assault, his rifle tearing through the enemy ranks. He moved with purpose, his focus unshakable. The coalition forces fought back with desperation, but the squad was relentless. Every attempt to regroup was met with overwhelming force, every counterattack crushed before it could gain momentum. Despite their success, the squad knew the clock was ticking. Reinforcements would arrive soon, and they couldn't hold their ground indefinitely. Cain gave the signal to retreat, the squad falling back in a controlled withdrawal. As they moved, the final charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the outpost. Fires spread, explosions cascading through supply depots and fuel reserves. The fortress crumbled, its defenses shattered. By the time the coalition reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left to defend. The squad had vanished into the night, leaving only destruction in their wake. It was a devastating blow to the coalition, a message that humanity would not go quietly into the dark. As the squad regrouped at a safe distance, Cain looked over his team. They were exhausted, battered, but alive. Ryan was still unconscious but stable, his condition carefully monitored by Voss. The mission had been a success, But Cain knew it was only the beginning. "This isn't over," Cain said, his voice low but firm. "They'll come back, and next time it'll be worse." Zara nodded, her expression hard. "Then we'll be ready." The squad fell silent, each member processing the events of the night. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, but the cost of their actions weighed heavily on them. The coalition would not forgive this humiliation, and the war was far from over. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the squad began their journey back to friendly territory. They moved with purpose, their resolve unshaken. They were soldiers, survivors, and a symbol of humanity's defiance. And as long as they stood together, they would fight no matter the odds.